This week on Intrigued Full Effect.
He's very close to our family. He's very close to his mother, his sister, his grandmother, my father. And it's not of his character to just up and leave and never come back and never be in contact with us. So I honestly believe that he came in contact with the wrong people at some point in time and something happened.
I'm Chandrea Thomas, and welcome to episode 49. In this podcast, I talk about curious cases, disappearances, and other stuff. And today I'm talking about the disappearance and curious case of Davante Richardson from Washington, D.C. This all happened in late July of 2020 at the peak of the pandemic. Davante vanished during a 2,000-mile, 30-hour road trip that took him from D.C. to Graybull, Wyoming, a small town with around 2,000 people. He was 28 years old at the time. His family believes that Davante was headed to a ranch owned by Kanye West, who now goes by Ye, to share his music and start a career. At the time, Ye's property was in the same county of where Davante's blue 2016 Jeep Compass was found on a desolate road. His music laptop, cell phones, and other possessions were left inside. Now, for the sake of clarity, based on information provided by investigators in media interviews, Ye's security team was contacted to find out if Davante ever made it to the ranch, and statements do suggest that they were cooperative, don't know of Davante, and say he never made it to Ye's property. But here's the thing. This case has lots of twists and turns, filled with tweets from Davante, alleged sightings, searches, the strange location of his Jeep, and questions about his mental health. Davante was a tattoo artist who also went by the name D-Rich, and he was in the process of gearing up and working on a budding music career. But now all his family has are memories and questions about where he is right now. I reached out to Davante's Aunt Marquita, the Metropolitan Police Department of D.C., the Bighorn County Sheriff, and a local missing persons advocate named Angela. I also tried to reach Ye's camp about the case. This is what happened. So tell me, how did you guys discover that Davante was missing, and what happened with that?
So my sister had called me that Monday, right before I was going to work, and she said she hadn't talked to Davante since Thursday. And I was like, okay, maybe he's out or whatever the case may be. She said she had texted him early Thursday to tell him the lights had went out because it was a storm that day. And then she texted him again to tell him that the lights had came back on, and he was like, okay. So she said she had texted him again Friday. It was around about 1:00 in the afternoon to see where he was. And he was like, I'm going to go visit my friend Kanye. And she was like, well, who is that? And then after that, she didn't hear anything else from him. No texts, no calls, no anything. And so when she had called me Monday, I was like, well, I'll call around like to the hospitals to see, if anything happened, if he had ended up in the hospital. So I called like our local hospitals that's around us, and nobody had seen or heard from him or anything like that. And so about mid-afternoon, we got in contact with his sister, my niece, and she was like, well, let me Google his number, because sometimes it can pinpoint, where the cell phone may have been. So when she Googled it, it said that the cell phone was in, I want to say it was Glen Burnie, Maryland. And so she was near there. So she drove over to there. She didn't see his car. She didn't see the cell phone. She didn't see him there or anything like that. So she called us back. She was like, I didn't see him or anything like that. So by the time I got off of work, we decided, to go to the police station to file a missing person report. And this was around about maybe 5:30, 6:00 in the afternoon. And so we went to our local police department, and they said, because it was COVID, we could 911 to make the report, and then they will send someone to our house. So we went back to my parents' house, called 911, and they sent someone probably like an hour or so later to come take the report and get his license plates number to his car and stuff. And prior to them coming, my niece, my brother, and I actually rode around like our neighborhood where he used to work at, just to see if we saw his car or saw him or anything like that. And we didn't find anything at that moment. So the police came, they took the initial report and everything, and they said they will file a missing person report. And so the very next day when I woke up, it was on Facebook and on, like social media and stuff like that. And we ended up sharing with like our family and friends and stuff like that. So that initially it started the investigation then.
Let me ask you about this because I know there's so much misinformation out there about Davante's case. So we know we need to clear some things up with that. But the one thing that I think I want to make sure that we clarify, I want to make sure that we clarify the timeline, okay? Because I think that's important as well, as far as what he was doing on certain days and things like that. He had been tweeting a lot during this journey from DC to Wyoming. So we know that was a trek that he was taking, right? So, okay, so I know he tweeted to Ye, say Kanye, but Ye on the 22nd. Okay, he was last seen on the 23rd. So that would have been, that the that night or that morning?
It would have been it was that Thursday afternoon because my daughters saw him leaving out the house. He had a bag with him and he got in the car, and my dad had saw him get in the car and he just said, "I'll be back," to my kids. And that was it. Like nothing else. He didn't say where he was going or anything like that.
About what he was doing. Okay, so that was the 23rd, that afternoon.
She texted him that night, whenever, I think it was like midnight into almost morning, because that's when the lights had went out for them. She had texted him just to tell him, the lights had went out, and then she said she retexted him closer to morning to say that the lights had came back on.
So July 22nd, he sends this tweet to Kanye West. That was never responded to. So we can already assume that he doesn't know, Kanye West doesn't know him and he doesn't know Ye, but he wants to know him. That's what it sounds like to me. And then on the 24th is when he had his last text message or communication with his mother.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this too, about his journey. So from what I understand, he had actually been communicating with a friend throughout his journey as well from out of state, as far as what he was trying to do.
So I had gotten in contact with one of his friends, and he had told me that he had talked to him actually the same day that my sister had texted him. That was the last communication anybody had ever had with him. And he was like, he was checking on him to see had he made it to wherever he was going or trying to go to. And he said he never heard from him. He had texted him and he was calling him. And the last thing he said was, "I'm getting some gas." And that was it.
So there was no indication of where he was at getting this gas in his journey?
No, he said he didn't know where he was getting the gas from.
As far as the situation with the investigation, there's another part of this as well. So let's get into what do you guys believe happened? I understand that Davante had been dealing with some things as far as like job changes and things like that, wanting to make some life changes with his career type situation. What was that?
He had been a manager at Shoppers, which is one of our local grocery stores here in the DMV. And they were in the process of shutting down a lot of their stores. So his store was one of the stores that was actually being shut down. And this was right after COVID had hit and everything. And so he ended up, losing his job at the time. He started doing like Lyft for a while, and then he wasn't doing nothing after that, as far as I know, as far as just the lifting and stuff like that. I know that he wanted to do something with music. He had expressed that to me a lot, and he had like radio equipment in his room and stuff like that. And he was very, very good on the computer with making beats and stuff like that. I never knew, he wanted to actually go out in the world and just do it. I just knew he expressed about doing it. I didn't know he was going to have a plan to try to actually go out and try to pursue his music career.
And so as far as you guys understood the situation, he was wanting to travel from DC, go that 2,000 plus miles to Wyoming to try to make some sort of contact with Kanye or Ye, and to maybe give him some music or something like that to try to get his career going. Is that what you guys understand about the scenario?
That's what was told to us from one of his the friend that he talked to, that he had expressed to him that he wanted to meet Kanye West to give him a track or something that he had made. Now, if he ever met him, I don't know. Nobody actually knows. There was talk that the police was sent to the ranch to see if he ever made it there. And we was told that they had never seen him, never came in contact with him. So I'm not sure what happened along the way there.
As we get into this whole thing, there's been a lot of speculation about Davante's state of mind, where he was headed in his life and that kind of thing. I just want to get some clarification from you as a family member regarding his situation, his state of mind, with him taking this trip. Where do you guys go with that? Because people are thinking, oh, I know, because I will say this. When I was going through his tweets and kind of studying what he was doing as he was on the road, he was tweeting a lot of stuff, thinking about a lot of things. You could tell that from the tweets. And I noticed that he did retweet something that was regarding mental health. So I do wonder, where do you guys sit with that bit of information?
So there was a lot of things that I saw on the internet where people were saying like he may be bipolar, he was taking pills, he was doing all kinds of things. As far as I know, coming from being his aunt and seeing him on a daily basis, I didn't see anything wrong with him. Davante has always been like a quiet person. So he's never been like, a big social media person, a big, party person type of stuff like that. He's always been quiet and to himself. So if you didn't know him, you might have thought that way, that, something might have been wrong with him. But us as his family knowing him, that he was just a quiet, stay to himself type of person. So if he used like Twitter as a platform to express himself, then that was just what he was doing, expressing himself in that way. And like I said, as far as like any mental health issues, I didn't know of any from him.
Now, I understand also that you had mentioned to me when we were talking before, you were having a conversation about this was the height of COVID. We didn't know what was happening with COVID at that time. Everyone was freaked out about it. So the idea of him being a Lyft driver, I'd imagine he did contract COVID at some point. So I'm wondering, do you think maybe that he got some sort of disorientation once he got there? Because it sounds like, that's a long trek to take by yourself, number one, but do you have any kind of theories about anything at this point?
My personal thought is, I do believe he possibly tried to go up there to meet, Kanye West, because he did express, that was one of his favorite artists and stuff. He might have got lost on the way there. And I honestly think that something did happen to him, because Davante, like I said, he's very close to our family. He's very close to his mother, his sister, his grandmother, my father. And it's not of his character to just up and leave and never come back and never be in contact with us. So I honestly believe that he came in contact with the wrong people at some point in time and something happened.
I spoke to Angela Lassiter, who lives in Graybull, Wyoming. She says she's been an advocate for the missing for years. This is a perspective she offered about the searches, including her own theories about the case and what the streets of Graybull are saying about the situation. Take a listen. My first question for you is, how did you come to be interested or involved in Davante's case? What happened there?
I heard a story on the Wake Up Wyoming radio program in the statewide news of a vehicle being found, a DC resident's vehicle being found on a remote rural Wyoming haul road. And I have been involved in missing persons cases for several years. I have a business partner that has canines and drones, and I thought, it's right here in my backyard. Let's see what we can do to offer help. Knowing that a non-local, somebody from outside of our state went missing in our state bothered me. Mm-hmm. That's not a good look for our state.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. So I know we were talking about earlier about the population there. You said there are basically 1,700 people in your little town, and four of them are Black. 4 Black men live in your city, or is it a town or a city? Town?
It's a town.
It's a town. Yeah. So if I should say, let's say Davante shows up there, he's going to stick out pretty much. I mean, there's no getting past any of that. And I hate to say it, but at some point, someone probably would have been like, who's this guy? Let me call, somebody to see who he is.
We don't have homeless. We don't have the people flying a sign. We don't have that in our town.
What do you know about the discovery of Davante's Jeep, where it's located, the person who found it? I know we can't really say that person's name because they haven't agreed
Correct.
to be on the podcast, but what can you tell me about that whole scenario and situation?
What I can tell you is that once I found out that the remote haul road was the Crystal Creek Haul Road. The Crystal Creek Haul Road is a road that a lot of us grew up learning how to drive on. It's where our parents would take us out. It's not a regular highway road. It's not maintained by Wyoming DOT. It's a remote rural haul road that mine traffic has the right of way on. When you travel on the road, as soon as you enter the highway, it's well marked that says, regular traffic must yield to mine traffic. And from there, knowing exactly how remote and rural it is, like that's out of town, but it's still close to properties. It's within a couple miles. There's several properties that are out there. And it's not uncommon for tourists to run out of gas, especially if they're looking. Like, I asked his family if he had been interested in geology, dinosaurs, rock formations, anything like that, because that would be a likely reason for him to be out in that area. Unfortunately, no, Davante wasn't into any of that. I had been made aware by the person that found the vehicle on his way home from work, because again, small town, everybody kind of knows everybody. And he knew that I advocate for missing people. So he contacted me and said, hey, I don't know what's going on, but this was found out here. And of course, it was a couple of days after the Jeep had already been reported that the person had found it. And so when I asked questions, he said there were no footprints leading away from the vehicle. The dust out there is very fine. It's bentonite. Bentonite is the clumping material in like kitty litter, makeup, also binds chocolate together. So it leaves a very fine powder and layer of dust. So you would see footprints walking away if like somebody had walked off. No, there weren't any footprints. Keys were in the ignition. That bothered me because he's from such a metro area, and it being a nice vehicle, why would you leave keys in it? That tells me that this kid lived in Metro DC. He wouldn't leave anything unlocked. You wouldn't in the city, you don't leave your keys in your vehicle. 2 cell phones and a laptop, that told me that he got separated from his stuff, because not the average person is going to leave their electronics and their keys in a vehicle unattended in the middle of nowhere, 2,073 miles away from their home.
See, here's another thing I think people have been curious about, and I am as well, is the question of whether or not the Jeep was on E or anything like that. Did the person who found the car, did they say if they noticed anything about that?
He didn't turn it on. He didn't enter the vehicle. He looked in. But since then, through running down the, again, small town, so you can go and you can sit uptown and have coffee and hear the gossip that runs through. And we all know that in all gossip, there is some truth, but it's your job to figure out, it's our jobs to figure out where the truth lies. So I was able to track back that, yes, the vehicle was out of gas.
So from the standpoint of Davante's case, I know that you've been such an advocate for this particular case and some others in your area. So you did make contact with the family. How has that been going? And honestly, what have you been able to uncover on your own through your local, sleuthing that you've been doing yourself?
About what you know. It's very hush. Actually, in July, I did a Light the Path event to bring awareness to the 3 missing people in my county, Davante being one. We placed 100 luminarias with all 3 missing people's photos on the luminarias, and we lit the path to light their way home, or light their way to more knowledge, or light their way to awareness, so more people are wondering, what is going on? Why did this happen?
Let me just ask you this question. So as far as what the streets are saying, when you're in a small community like the one that you're in, 1,700 people, you said, what theories, or because there's always theories about what people believe happened. So what have you heard people say about that? And what is your own theory or theories, if you have any?
Really, the talk on the town that you hear around is, boy, that's just a shame. And there's just no new news. What happened? Why is nobody looking into it? That's the talk on the town. I have one of two theories. I have that maybe we have something local. We have a problem. Somebody local might have their own little issues. But if that were the case, we would be hearing of more people going missing. We would hear of more people disappearing, things like that. So, I mean, that's something that you have to put on the board because critical thinking demands that. So at the same time that Davante went missing, the person he was coming to see was going through a little bit of a mental health crisis. That was one of the reasons that I've been told that Davante came out here, was because he thought he was going through a little something, and he thought that maybe his buddy Kanye could relate to him. Now, that being said, at that same time, I know that Mr. West's mental health aspects and issues were, his friends were having a concern about him because several of his music counterparts had converged upon Park County and Bighorn County, and some were staying out at the Bighorn County residence, some were staying out at the Park County residence. There was also a casting call that was put in the Cody Enterprise in the want ads at the same time, and I'm not sure if that correlated with his clothing line or the church services that he was doing, like at the Buffalo Bill Historical Center. And he had also put out on through social media, Twitter, that he was looking for performing independent artists to come out and occupy his solo pods that he had put out on his property. Thinking about that, thinking that maybe the security staff could potentially have been being a little more on the upper part of their game, the top level of their game, and not wanting anybody to get around these people. Somebody going through a mental health crisis could have easily attempted to push his way in to say, oh, I need to see him. He's my buddy. And in something like that, I could see maybe him getting roughed up and then maybe something happening due to that circumstance. And from my perspective, again, if frogs had wings, they wouldn't bump their butts every time they jumped. And in a perfect world, we would have all of these answers. The part that bothers me the most is that we're now 2 years out and we still know nothing more than we did within the first 6 weeks that he went missing.
So let's switch up a little bit and talk about the searches and things that you've been able to kind of observe and see through your own searches and things like that. What has actually happened that you've seen at this point, and what have you done on your own?
Bighorn County brought out drones, dogs, a cadaver dog, a helicopter, horseback, and a foot team. And they've covered the area. Now, the area is very remote and very vast. It backs up into Bureau of Land Management property. And it's very desert-like. There aren't trees, it's sagebrush, scrub brush, rocks, dirt. So it's a very wide open, vast terrain. And our law enforcement has gone on the record in several different, the Level Chronicle, the Grable Standard, the Cowboy State Daily, to say that they are very confident that Mr. Richardson has not been and was not, or is not and has not been within 6 miles of that vehicle due to the search efforts that they have done. I personally have partnered, I have a business partner, we have Fine 911 based out of Cody, Wyoming, and we have dogs and drones. I provide the advocacy side of it, and we have gone out and we've flown 40,000 acres, and we have yet to find anything. You know, we have software that has AI capabilities to pull out color, like clothing colors, to pull out different elements that you can program it in and have it search in the footage. So far, nothing has brought back anything of that. I mean, he was wearing gray and blue. The blue we would be have a good result with. The gray, it kind of blends in with everything out there.
Let me ask you this question. Since you live out in that area and you have a really good perspective of how far things are apart from each other, how far would you say Davante's Jeep was in proximity to the property that Mr. West owned or owns or is in transition of selling or whatever out in Bighorn County? How far apart do you think that distance is?
About 12 miles.
Okay.
About 12 miles back towards the mountain. So that would be to the east of where the Jeep was found.
So did you ever hear anyone say, oh, this guy came through to get something to eat, or this guy stayed at the hotel over here, or he stopped for gas over here? Did you ever hear anyone talk about any of that in your town? Did anyone ever say they saw Davante in your town at all?
No, ma'am.
That's very interesting, because you would think that someone would have seen him. You can't miss him, in a town like that. So that's a very interesting.
Even the Jeep. I mean, where did he go to get gas? Did he go between the Grable property? Did he go from Grable to Cody? I mean, there was, via social media, there was a young gal who said he came through the McDonald's drive-through, and upon going to collect footage, it didn't appear to be him.
Oh, okay.
It didn't appear to be him. And again, unfortunately, the downside to social media being involved in missing persons cases.
Information comes from everywhere. You never really know. And so, and I'll say this too. I know some of the information that you've talked about, you've been able to confirm yourself, and some of it has been kind of secondhand information to you. So I just want people to understand all of that, as we go into this, but it's perspective on, what could be. So
a lot of this, anything that was given to me secondhand, if I've not been able to verify it, I will say this was given to me from another source. I will protect the source because they don't deserve to have their information blasted. But when I'm given information, whether it's speculation, fact, if it's fact, it's really easy to go out there and check, because if it's fact-based, you're going to find it in a publication. If it's speculation-based, you have to run it down to get to, okay, so these are the facts that they're speculating from, but I always take it back and I always verify it with something that's out in the public.
So I understand that, there were some searches in the past. However, and the sheriff, when I had communications with him, that he did mention that there would be new searches coming up in the future. So what do you know about that? Are you involved with that in any way?
I was advised that they would be bringing back the dog teams after rattlesnake season to potentially search for him. Now, when that time frame is, whether it'll be publicized, most likely it'll be again on the hush, because you don't want to alert if by chance somebody did do something untowards to Mr. Richardson. You would not want that information getting out, so that then something might be relocated. But we have with the acreage that we've flown, we have a very good thumbprint for any evidence documentation. That's part of what Find does. You want to get in and get a drone over an area as quickly as possible so that you can get that for evidence documentation and collection, or you're made aware of something coming in, or you were to find information, you want to be able to document that it hasn't been tainted, placed, that type of scenario.
There's also kind of an idea that, Davante, and I've had conversations with his family, and I'll talk to them more about that, but that he has some sort of, situation where he became disoriented, maybe out in this area. Is that an area where you can easily get lost, like where the Jeep was found?
Only if he would have gone towards the east. East would have taken him back towards the mountains. Any other direction, walking within 2 to 5 miles, 5 miles would have put him back into town. 2.5 miles would have put him into MI's yard, the bentonite plant's yard. 1.5 miles would have put him at a house.
And that would be like the areas that surround pretty much where the Jeep was. So it is possible that he could have somehow gotten into the mountains and went that direction, just, especially if it's dark. I mean, you never know what you could possibly encounter.
It's a good walk. It's a good walk to get to the mountains. I mean, you're going to have a half a day's walk before you're going to get to the mountains. And by that point in time, you're going to realize that you're walking into the sun, not away from the, you're going to realize that you're walking east. Davante's of the generation that's attached to their cell phones. He was in his 20s. What 20-year-old do you not see that doesn't have a cell phone attached to them? And why, if you're in the middle of nowhere and you're out of cell service, why wouldn't you have taken your cell phone with you when you walked off and at least pulled your keys? Or heck, left a note that said, my vehicle's out of gas. I need help. Out walking for help. Why wouldn't you have done that? Being somebody from a metro urban area, are you really going to trust people in the middle of a state you don't know with leaving your possessions?
What is the main message that you want to convey about this case?
Right is right, wrong is wrong, and Davante hasn't had right done for him, in my opinion. I would really like to see a gold star standard set nationally for what you do when your loved one goes missing, because there is no handbook written.
Now back to my conversation with Davante's aunt, Marquita. When you think about what was left inside of the car, the keys, the cell phone and all that, I mean, I'm thinking myself, when I go to the mailbox, I'll take my phone with me. You know what I mean? So
I leave out the house for a second, I'm taking everything with me. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Do you believe the car was maybe planted there? Because if his phones are inside, I mean, then you would think, okay, so like they didn't take the phones, but those phones can be tracked. But I'm just kind of wondering, like, he would be the type of guy, I'm asking you, who would, like, if I'm getting out of this car and I'm lost or something, I'm taking these phones. Would you assume that?
Right. And that's something that we had discussed as a family, because anytime you saw Davante, when he was sitting like on the porch at my parents' house, he was always on his phone. And it's like this day and age, nobody goes anywhere without their phone, especially if you're in a whole other state that you've never been to. You don't know where you're going. You're going to need your phone for your GPS. You're going to need to have it to contact people. So that's why I say something had to happen in that time, him going there and possibly trying to come back home, that something happened to where he left all his stuff in his car. And, you know, and then, like I said, that's been always been strange to me, because it's like, if you went up there for a reason, you're going to take all your stuff with you. You know, something had to stop you in your tracks from you not getting your items out your car.
The Jeep itself, what do you guys know about the Jeep at this point? Where is the Jeep? Who has it? Do investigators have it? Do you know about how it was processed?
As far as I know, when they found the Jeep was, I was told, was facing like as though it was going towards coming back home. As far as I know, the car was impound and taken to like the impound lot. Now where it is, I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything else about the car since then.
As far as the investigation goes, how do you feel about how things have been going with Graybull? I mean, with the Bighorn Sheriff's Department, those investigators, and you have DC investigators who are thousands of miles away from each other. How have you guys been able to kind of obtain information, and how is that working out?
In the beginning, it was very confusing because, like you say, it's two different places. You have Washington, D.C., and you have Wyoming. They operate very differently. We were not able to go to Wyoming, so I'm not sure how much manpower they actually put into actually looking for him. And like I said, when I talked to the lady that was in Wyoming, what she told me was, because Wyoming is a predominantly Caucasian state, having a Black person missing in that state is like, okay, you know, people kind of overlook it, or they see that, you know, he was there. Yeah, he was there. We noticed him because he stuck out like a sore thumb. But now it turned into a whole miscommunication things. You know, one person said this, the other person said that. So it's just been confusing throughout the whole situation. And I have had so many people like inbox me about stories. They have seen him, and they may have seen him walk on the road. And one lady said she saw him in the McDonald's the day before. And, you know, it's just been a lot of craziness that has happened. And it's like, I don't know what to believe at this point. You know, I always sit and just hope for the best for him, but it's just like, at this point, we don't know what to believe.
And I know this is something that typically happens when there's a missing loved one. The family gets all types of crank calls, scam calls. Tell me about that experience, because I know you had to have had that experience.
Yes. I had one DM from this guy. This probably was about 4 or 5 months ago. And he was saying that he was being sold on the black web. And I'm like, you know, what is the black web? What are you talking about? He was like, I know where he is. He's in contact with some general in the army, and he's going to sell him and this, that, and the third. So I actually got in contact with DC police, gave him the information, and found out that this man had been contacting a lot of missing families a lot of missing families that he found on the internet, trying to get money out of them. And so that was a scam. There's been a guy who kind of sort of looks like him on the internet that my sister had gotten in contact with. He had sent her a friend request, and she was like, talking to him, trying to get some information out of him, but come to find out that he wasn't even like a real person. He kept on changing his profile and stuff like that. So he wasn't a real person. Just crazy things like, the other day I got into with someone on your page where the man was like, I know what happened to him and stuff like that. And I'm just like, you don't say those type of things, especially you don't say those type of things online, because everyone can see it. And my thing is, if you don't know what actually happened, then don't put it out there, because he does have a family that loves and cares for him and has been looking for him the last 2 years. And it hurts to see that type of stuff, because, people want to play around, but then it's like, if you haven't gone through it, then, don't hurt someone else that's going through it right now.
I understand that. What do you know about his social media activity, bank activity, social media activity, any type of phone activity? What do you guys know about that? Did it all stop on that day? Was there anything that happened after the fact that you're aware of?
So he had a couple of phones, and you know how, people change their phone numbers a lot. So he was the type of person that always end up with a new phone. Something happened with his phone. He changed his phone periodically. And I know his dad said that Thursday he had texted him to tell him happy birthday. And his dad didn't have his new number. So he was like, who is this? And he never responded back. So when I had spoke to his dad throughout the process, I was like, well, what number did he text you from? So he told me. So I said, oh, well, that's his new number that he had. As far as like any other thing from the phone, we hadn't got any activities or anything as far as like bank cards and stuff like that. We didn't know if anything else, happening or anybody having his information or nothing like that.
At this point, when it comes to the impact on the family, tell me what this disappearance has done to you guys, and as far as just being able to deal with it. Understand that his mom, you guys have had another loss within his sibling group. So how are you guys even handling all that?
It's been hard. Like I said, my sister lost her daughter. It's been about 7-8 years now, and she was the middle daughter. And so her and Davante were really, really, really close. Also, my dad actually just passed in February, and him and Davante were very close. Davante used to cut his hair, drive him around and all that stuff. So he doesn't even know, that my dad is deceased now. And so it's been hard on our family just to not have him here and see him around and stuff like that. And he was very close to my two daughters. So my baby daughter, she always asks about him all the time. Is Tady coming home? Where's Tady? Because we call him Tady. And, I just have to tell her, we got to pray on it and hope that he'll come home one day and stuff like that. So it really has affected us in so many ways.
What do you know about how the Jeep was processed? Do you know anything about any particular type of evidence that was strange to you or that stood out for you? And was his clothes in the car?
So his bag that he took with him was still in the car, his cell phone and his laptop. They said they didn't find any other fingerprints but his own fingerprints in the car. So I found that to be strange too.
That's interesting. And at the same time, it would seem to me like he would have had some food to eat on this thousands-mile trip. So they said they found no wrappers, and I was like, that's kind of weird.
And Davante was a snacker. Like, he didn't eat too much of a big meal unless it was like Taco Bell or something. But he was a big, snacker, chips, candy type of situation. So, and like I said, they did say that they saw him on that Monday at McDonald's, which was one of the places he liked to eat. So
this is what I found out during an interview with the D.C. Metro Police Department about Davante's disappearance. This is what Commander Daniel Godin had to say. They're the lead investigators on the case. As far as the Davante Richardson case, where are you guys with it? When was he reported missing, and where is it at right now?
The case is currently still open. It's assigned to one detective within the missing persons unit here at the Youth and Family Services Division. We've had the case since July of 2020. Ever since then, we've been investigating along with the police in Wyoming, Bighorn County.
As far as tips or leads, where are you guys with that regarding this particular case?
Tips, as of late, we have had no tips.
What can you guys tell me about what you guys believe he was doing, taking the trip from Wyoming? I mean, from DC to Wyoming, because he was allegedly going to see Kanye West, at his ranch. What can you guys speak to regarding that part of the story?
We did get that same report that he was allegedly going to see Kanye at the ranch in Wyoming. We don't have any other information. We don't have information that he made it to the ranch. According to the police in Wyoming, there's no indication that he actually made it to the ranch. Well, I could tell you it is extremely unusual for a person to be missing this long. We're past 2 years. Like I said, it was reported back in July of 2020.
Where is the car now at this point?
According to the police in Wyoming, they told us that it was with the family.
When you come across cases like this, I mean, what do you think about that with regards to what you guys typically see?
It does happen from time to time, and we also got to keep in mind that some people do want to leave. Maybe it's the situation that they're in. They leave on their own accord. They don't want to be found, but we're still investigating it as a missing person, and we'll continue to investigate.
And if a family has a missing loved one, be it a kid, adult, or what have you, what do you think they should do, like immediately? I'm not, people call 911 and things like that, but is there anything that families can do to help you guys in your investigation? You know what I mean?
One of the main things nowadays would be to communicate to social media. What platforms do they use? What platforms do they know they use? Another thing that's helpful, if we find a person's phone, passwords for that phone would probably expedite any kind of searches that we're doing on our end related to the phone. But social media is big, knowing what they are on, and if they can provide updated photos of that person to us, that's another big key. And we get that out to the public as soon as possible.
I tried to reach Ye's last known publicist online for a statement, and I never heard back. No surprise there. I also made contact with Bighorn County Sheriff Ken Blackburn. We weren't able to connect for an on-camera interview, but he did give me the following response in an email, saying they had great empathy for the family. He also went on to say, quote, "We will conduct another search before the snow flies to see if anything in this wide open area has changed or been exposed. Shallow graves that animals might have disturbed, etc. We will never give up looking, and there are just very few leads out there at the moment. As always, somebody should have seen something, and that's what's a little strange about this case. As we are such a small area, people usually don't go unnoticed." There is also a quote from the Cowboy State Daily newspaper that says the sheriff did searches by ground and air while using canines and horses in the process. Like, as far as you guys know, he didn't know. I'm thinking if I knew Kanye West or if I knew Ye, everyone who I know would know that I knew him. You know what I mean? If that was
Right.
the way to put it. So did you guys have any indication that he really knew him, or he was trying to get to know him? You know what I'm saying?
I personally don't think he knew him on a personal level. He was a fan of him. He wanted to try to pursue his music career. So, anybody that's trying to pursue that type of career will go do what they have to do to get where they're trying to be. But as far as him knowing on a personal level, I don't think he knew him on a personal level at all.
If there was anything that you would want to clear up or clarify at this point, you have an opportunity to do that. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to get cleaned up?
Just the simple fact, a lot of stuff that I've seen on the internet and people saying, that he was crazy, he was bipolar, coming from his family, like those things aren't true. If you wasn't there, if you're not part of the investigation, if you don't know what truly happened, then, keep your thoughts to yourself. Like I said, he has a big family that's been looking for him the last 2 years, and we're hurting. And, just to see those things on the internet, it hurts us to see that. And like I said, my sister has been through a lot in the last couple of years, and just to see her, this is her only son, and he's not around anymore. And just to see her, how she's, dealing with and stuff, it hurts to see that. So, if it doesn't come from me, his aunt, don't listen to the rumors.
If there was any way that Davante could somehow see this or hear this, what would you say to him?
That we love him and we miss him so much, whatever the case may be. If he decided, hey, I did want to leave the family to pursue my career or, live a different life, just give us a call and let us know so that we have some type of comfort, so that we know that he's okay. We just want to know that he's okay.
And what about the people who have helped you guys as much as they possibly could at this point? What would you say to those folks?
Everybody that has helped us along the way, whether it be family members, I have had co-workers, friends, friends and family, people that actually didn't know me that, reached out to me and say, let me know what I can help in the best way. Just thank you, because they didn't have to do it. If Davante is still around and he sees this, we love you, and, whatever may have happened in the past that you feel that you needed to just leave us, so all is forgiven. We just want you back home.
When it comes to my final thoughts about this case, I'm left to wonder who Davante encountered in Graybull and what really happened. Is there a chance that he somehow got tired and was disoriented after the long 2,000-mile drive from D.C. and ended up in the rugged terrain? Or did he come across someone with bad intentions for Davante once he was discovered in town? Investigators say he never made it to Ye's ranch, but did he meet up with someone he connected with online who led him to a dark place where he thought he was meeting his favorite rapper? That's something to think about. And one thing is clear, someone like Davante would stick out big time in a small town like Graybull. So it seems to me that someone knows something. Or did Davante simply walk away from his life, a theory his family just can't see? The bottom line is that the family is no closer to finding their loved one, but a small detail from a small town can make a big difference in helping investigators crack the case. It's still an open missing persons case, and a search is expected in Bighorn County sometime this fall. Davante is 6'1" and weighs 170 pounds. He was last seen wearing a blue shirt and gray sweatpants. You can leave anonymous tips at 202-727-9099 or the Bighorn County Sheriff's Department at 307-568-2324. I'll keep an eye on this case and let you know what happens next. If you have a case that you want me to check out, just reach me on the Intrigued Full Effect website or via email at intriguedfulleffect@hotmail.com. Until next time, be safe and stay true. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the Intrigued Full Effect, Curious Cases, Disappearances, and Other Stuff podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the host. The primary purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. The host of this podcast assumes no liability or responsibility for any activities in connection with opinions shared in the podcast. The podcast and blog associated with it shall not be used in any legal capacity or as a basis for expert testimony. Any copyright material in the podcast is approved by the owner or is part of the public domain. Music by Pond 5.